Microvita and spiritual attainment. Kamurti. Ka plus murti equals Kamurti. Kamurti literally means a heavenly appearance, an appearance in the sky. Since ancient times, rishis, sages, yogis, and spiritual aspirants have seen some kind of luminous bodies or disembodied souls by dint of the divine grace of Paramapurusha. These luminous bodies assist spiritual aspirants in all possible ways. Only spiritual aspirants are able to see these luminous bodies due to the grace of Paramapurusha. Though they are visible to the naked eye, they cannot be photographed. Spiritual aspirants can speak to these luminous bodies and get answers to their questions. While the words of a spiritual aspirant may be recorded on a tape recorder, the answers given by the luminous bodies cannot be recorded. If a spiritual aspirant asks them for any mundane object, they may or may not grant the request. If they do grant the request, they do so only once, and after that they will never come within that person's sight again. If a spiritual aspirant asks for something spiritual, one may either get it directly or through the siddhas, one of the 7 types of devayonis. Siddhas are a category of Microvita which are very helpful to spiritual aspirants. I have already told you about the different categories of devayonis, and in that connection I have said something about siddhas. Yogis and spiritual aspirants say that sometimes during their sadhana they see siddhas and receive direct help from them. People see heavenly appearances due to the grace of Paramapurusha, but the Guru cautions them that they should never ask for any object of enjoyment or any mundane object from a heavenly appearance. If someone wants objects of enjoyment, one will find oneself in the painful snare of enjoyment. It is worth mentioning here that one should not confuse Shadya Purusha with a heavenly appearance. Shadya Purusha is a mere game of light and shade. If someone gazes intently on a dazzling white object and then looks at a dimly lit object, one will only see a shadow. This shadow is called Shaya Purusha. If you look towards the sun for a while and then look at another part of the sky, you will see a kind of shadow. Similarly, if you look at the flame of a burning lamp for some time and then look at another point of dim light, you are sure to see a kind of shadow. In ancient times, people who practiced hypnotism, in those days, hypnotism or Samohana Vidya was considered a part of Avidya Tantra, which includes Marana, Vashikarana, Uchatana, Samohana, Shanti Karma, and Stambhana. These 6 items of Tantra are considered part of Avidya Tantra. I would have seen Shaya Purusha at night with the help of the moon or with the help of a burning lamp fueled by clarified butter on new moon nights. With their vision fixed on the Shaya Purusha, they would gradually become conversant with the science of hypnotism. Since olden times, the practice of Avidya Tantra and the science of hypnotism have been well known in India and China. In modern times, the science of hypnotism was used to cure disease by Dr. Mesmer, a European physician. Since then, curing diseases by the science of hypnotism has been called mesmerism, after his name. So now you understand that the Shaya Purusha, as used in hypnotism or mesmerism, is only a game of light and shade. Kamurti, or a heavenly appearance, however, is a thoroughly spiritual vision. Shaya Purusha is a mere image of a shadow, whereas Kamurti is an image of bright effulgence. If any of you have had a chance to see such a heavenly appearance, or are still seeing one, on any occasion due to the grace of the Guru, you should not pray for any mundane object or for any finite object of enjoyment from these heavenly appearances. There is yet another kind of shadowy appearance, unrelated to Kamurti. In Tantra, this is known as Yakshini Darshan. As a result of practicing a special type of Tantra, people attain the Yakshini Siddhi. Such people are known as Yakshini Siddhas, Sarkas who have attained a type of occult power. These Yakshinis work under the instructions of the Siddhas, and provided that some rules and regulations are not violated, they abide by their instructions. Usually the Yakshinis cannot be induced to perform any evil deed. They have no influence in the supernatural and spiritual spheres. Their influence is primarily exerted in the physical spheres, and to some extent in the psychic sphere. They follow the Yakshini Siddhas like a shadowy image, and very often can be found moving on walls or inside rooms like black shadows. I have never heard of anyone being harmed by a Yakshini, but it may have happened. I know a certain person who was a professor of physics in a college in Bihar. Let us suppose his name was Swapneshwar Chattopadhyaya. I heard that he had attained Yakshini Siddhi. He did not have a son, but a daughter who lived far away from him in the house of her father-in-law. She had a daughter who used to live with her grandparents, Swapneshwar Chattopadhyaya and his wife. The granddaughter was very young, about 2 or 3 years old. Once Mr. Chattopadhyaya had to spend quite a long time in Calcutta in connection with his academic pursuits. His wife, say her name was Kanika, was a very good but timid woman. The thought that she would have to live alone for a long time made her half dead. After all, how far could she rely on her tiny granddaughter? Mr. Chattopadhyaya consoled his wife, saying, "Do not worry, my Yakshini will take care of you. She will help you in all ways." On the eve of his departure for Calcutta, he showed his wife a black shadowy image reflected on the wall of their meditation room. Though the figure was very small, it looked like a human figure. Mr. Chattopadhyaya said to his wife, "This Yakshini will protect you from all troubles and dangers." He set out on his journey and was expected to return after 45 days. Immediately after his departure, many strange things began to happen. Wherever Kanika went, the image of the Yakshini followed her like a shadow. For the first few days, Kanika was a bit nervous, seeing the shadowy image, but later on, as she was obliged to spend her time in its company, she overcame her fear. Rather, she grew more courageous than before. At noon one day, while Kanika was engaged in cleaning utensils and plates in the kitchen, she suddenly noticed that the image of the Yakshini was shaking abnormally. At first she was puzzled, but then she noticed the Yakshini moving quickly out of the room. She followed the image and also left the room. The Yakshini came to the door of the living room, beside the main gate. Kanika discovered that a thief dressed like a gentleman was about to escape with a suitcase that was kept in the room. The thief had barely caught sight of Kanika when he took to his heels, leaving the suitcase behind. The main gate had been left open by mistake. On another day, Kanika was sitting in the kitchen, kneading flour. Suddenly, she noticed that the Yakshini was shaking violently again. Kanika looked at the figure in utter amazement. Immediately it went out of the kitchen, and Kanika followed it closely. The Yakshini rushed towards the well, across the courtyard of the house. As soon as Kanika looked towards the well, she was alarmed, horrified. She noticed that her 3-year-old granddaughter was sitting precariously on the edge of the well, looking down into it. If she moved slightly this way or that, or if she moved only a little and looked at her own reflection in the water, she would have immediately fallen into the well. No one could have prevented her certain death. Kanika moved stealthily forward from behind, lifted the child up, and placed her on her lap. Barely a month had passed since Swapneshwar had gone to Calcutta. One day Kanika was cutting lady's finger in the kitchen. Suddenly she looked at the image of the Yakshini on the wall, and she noticed that it was gradually disappearing. She looked all over the wall, but could not see the image anywhere. Meanwhile, she heard the sound of someone knocking at the front door. Kanika went to the door and opened it, only to see Swapneshwar standing on the doorstep. Seeing Kanika, Swapneshwar said, "I was supposed to stay in Calcutta for 1.5 months, but as the job was finished in 1 month, I came home without delay." I am narrating what little information I have about Yakshinis. Formerly, some people used to perform yakshini sadhana according to the prescribed tantrika rituals. I do not know if people still do the same thing today. In the past, there were no caste or communal barriers as far as these tantrika practices were concerned, nor are there any today. The system of performing sadhana on various deities is not exactly the same as this, but somewhat similar. Deities which are like shadowy figures also become visible in this practice, although this sadhana is different to some extent from the sadhana of yakshini siddhi. The psychology in both is the same. All the systems of Kali Siddha, Durga Siddhi, Daikini Siddhi, Yakshini Siddhi, etc. are different in practice, yet they are similar theoretically. In case one wants to achieve the Siddhi of various deities, one should acquire more mental purity than in the case of Yakshini Siddhi, Dakshini Siddhi, Yogini Siddhi, etc. Because this subject concerns the psychic stratum, it is of an elevated nature, but it has no relation whatsoever to the realm of genuine spirituality. Once, during my stay at Allahabad, a certain gentleman came in my contact. He told me that he had attained Kali Siddhi. I said to him, "Well, can you try to tell me something about your experiences? For instance, what do you see? What do you understand? Etc." He said, "I perform sadhana according to such and such system. One day after sadhana, I saw a shadowy image of Kali on the wall. Since then, whenever my mind gets concentrated, the image of Kali produces some kind of vibration in my mind, which enables me to understand what it wants to convey to me. Last night, that image conveyed to me that you were coming to Allahabad today from Bihar, and that you would stay here for a few days." I asked him, "Can you see the red mark on Kali's feet, her ankle bows, her iron bangles, the garland of skulls around her neck, the garland of fingers, etc.? He replied, "No, I do not see anything like that. All those things are mixed up in the shadow. The shadow itself is the combination of all those things." Then I asked him about Yakshini Siddhi, and I also asked if he knew the difference between Yakshini Siddhi and Kali Siddhi. In the case of sadhana, for Yakshini Siddhi, there is less devotional intensity due to lack of deep ideation, but during Kali sadhana there is a fair degree of devotion, and at the same time the psychic state is somewhat peaceful. Usually, people do not utilize Kali Shakti for destructive purposes, but of course there may be some avidya tantrikas who use their acquired power for malevolent deeds. This type of siddhi of various deities is a kind of psychic achievement of a higher order, yet this has nothing to do with the spiritual world. Uttama Brahma Sadhana Madhyama Dhyana Dharana Yapastuti Syada Dhamma Murti Puja Dhamma Dhamma. To ideate on Brahma is the best method of spiritual practice. Dhyana and Dharana are the mediocre types of sadhana. Japa, repetition or incantation, and stuti, chanting hymns, are the inferior types of sadhana, and murti puja, or idol worship, is the worst of all. You may have heard that some people attain bhuta siddhi or preta siddhi, the ability to communicate with ghosts. This ability is greatly inferior to yakshini siddhi. In olden days, some people would follow the practice of bhuta siddhi, usually to extend their influence or to do harm to others, and would perform many misdeeds. Today no one follows this practice. If some people do, they are very few. Instances of people being possessed by ghosts, gods and goddesses, dakini, yogini, etc. are somewhat similar to this from the psychological perspective. You may have noticed that sometimes people look for those who are obsessed by manasa, satima, etc. when they feel an immense desire to find answers to their questions. Others visit special places or localities to attain the exact answers to their problems. Although these things are similar psychologically, they are somewhat different in practice. To treat various diseases by performing a special type of dharana, deep concentration, on various gods and goddesses, is nothing but the play of the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious level of the mind. Due to the grace of Paramapurusha, if someone gets the chance to see a heavenly appearance known as Kamurti and ask for spiritual blessings from that entity, then one may get spiritual experiences through the Siddha Devayoni, positive Microvita. One merges one's individual existence and spiritual flow in the macrocosmic stance of Paramapurusha and attains Savishesha or Savikelpa Samadhi, the state of partial absorption of mind, or by merging in the supreme stance of Paramapurusha, one attains Nirvishesha or Nirvikalpa Samadhi, that state of complete absorption of mind. This is the summit of spiritual attainment. In the final stages of one's spiritual journey, the entitative existence of the Sadhaka is merged into Paramapurusha. 6th September 1987, Calcutta, Shabda Shayanikya, Part 13, page 78 to 87.